Hello, I am about to go and do a little workout, but I had some intuitive guidance that it was a good time to record this about perimenopause. This is something that I get asked a lot about, and a lot of people can be really dismissive when they hear wellness and womb because they think that it only means fertility. But as women, we are born with wombs. And this is about women's health, not just when we're talking about fertility. So, how does Iron's movement apply when we are talking about perimenopause or menopausal issues that can come up? Well, we need to understand how Iron's role plays in this. Iron is what ages us. So, as we age, we accumulate more iron. That is really important because when we think about different ways that we can disrupt iron's movement over the course of our life, when we're thinking of maybe I've had some clients who've struggled with perimenopause and they're in their 30s. They're thinking that they are going through all of these big life changes when really it's the issue of accumulating so much iron that is really getting to them. So, some things to keep in mind is with iron being regulated through blood loss, that means that it's really difficult to remove excess iron. It's not something that we can, I wish it was, that we could, do like a 30-day fast and that would just be the end of it. And, or, work out hard for a couple months and that would be it. We are talking about a very long process to be able to pull that excess iron out of the tissues. And so when you think about these women going and getting iron infusions, when we're talking about consuming iron supplements, when we're thinking of the different prenatals that we consume, or all of these synthetic things that we pump into our bodies thinking that it's doing good when it's really not, vitamin D supplements being one of them, that's part of the issue. So I find that perimenopause, or I use perimenopause very loosely because I think that it can be a really big range of women who are struggling with these different symptoms, like their 30s. For example, I have, one amazing friend of mine, I love her dearly, and she's been struggling with what she thinks is perimenopause. She's been having really heavy menstrual cycles. She's been thinking about having a hysterectomy. She's not sure what the answer is, but she knows what the answer is because we talk about it. And we were discussing how, B vitamins are synthetic when we're getting them through ways that aren't naturally occurring. She's like, well, I can't give up my B12 injections. I'm like, well, that's the problem. There we go. We have figured it out. So there's all of these different ways that we really don't think about that can be disruptive to iron's movement. And so that's something that's really important to keep in mind because it's not if you've only consumed iron supplements or if you've consumed dairy, then you've consumed added vitamin D. So, there's all of these different ways that affect us. If also that's just from what we consume with when we're talking about supplements and foods. There's also an added element of what are we consuming when we are talking about our relationships? What are we consuming when we're looking at social media or in our environment? Different things like that. The energy of things totally plays a role. And there's no coincidences. There's no coincidence for the reason that iron is Fe, which is, the beginning of fear. And because fear and iron go hand in hand, copper is what brings us color. All of these beautiful things come from copper, and that is the only element that regulates iron and oxygen. So that's pretty important. So when we're thinking of all of these different things, it's important to understand when we're looking to get back to balance that it's not, there's anybody who is telling you, who is being honest with you, there's not a quick fix for this in the sense that iron is not going to quickly leave your body. It's not about urinating it out, things like that. Our menstrual cycle is there to help us, and part of the issue is we've thought that it's out to get us. We think that by, getting more iron infusions to help with the anemia, then that's the solution, when really the low hemoglobin is a low vitamin A deficiency, and that's part of the problem. So How long does it take? How long is it going to take when we have perimenopause or we're having these perimenopausal symptoms? The symptoms are just telling us that we are having more dysregulation in the body. So the first thing would be to, I would say, journal. Write down the different symptoms that you're having because there will be changes, there will be benefits that happen, and you will have forgotten about them because because things start to happen over time and we just kind of forget that's where we started from. Typically, in one of my last sessions that I have with my clients, we'll go back and review where they started from so that they can see how far they've come. Because a lot of the times they forget where they were starting at. And when we talk about the different symptoms that they were having 4 or 5 months ago, they can't believe that's where they started from. So that's a really important part of it because that will help you realize the changes that you're seeing in your body over time and give you a little bit of, I would say, grace towards your body. You can understand that it's healing. And when I'm talking about how iron is regulated through blood loss, part of the reason why that's so important is because if we don't keep that in perspective, then we think that we are just going to find different ways to be able to regulate it. When our menstrual cycle, when doing blood donations or bloodletting, those are all really important pieces of the puzzle. So the first thing after we start by documenting, we want some kind of starting point. Another thing would be to start with like adrenal cocktails or cod liver oil or beef liver. Picking one of my core four, I also like magnesium, I think is a really great place to start because especially with adrenal cocktails, and what are adrenal cocktails? They are whole food vitamin C and electrolytes. So I am very particular with the supplements that I recommend. And I have recently gotten rid of a product that I would recommend because I don't align with the company that manufactures it. So making sure that you're checking out the different supplements that I recommend is really important. I've also had clients come to work with me because they had changed their cod liver oil up and they weren't sure why their lab results had changed. We changed their cod liver oil back to one of the ones that I recommended, and their lab work went back to what we wanted it to be at. And part of that is because not all supplements are made the same way. And so that's really important is I am looking at how these different supplements are being manufactured. I am looking at whether or not they are processing them at high temperatures, all of these different things. And so there's a reason why there's only a handful of supplements that I will recommend for each one of the different categories. So that's really important. So looking at having high whole food vitamin C with electrolytes, super, super important. That's nourishing to our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands run on whole food vitamin C, and part of the reason that can be really helpful is nourishing them so that that's an easier place to start and taking some of the pressure off. The reason why I like beef liver and cod liver oil, beef liver has your whole food B vitamins. It has choline. It's going to have vitamin A. It's going to be a rich source of copper. It's got a variety of nutrients. It's essentially like a multivitamin that God made. So that is one of the reasons why I like beef liver. I'm a big fan of like supporting like. So if you are wanting kidney or spleen or different things like that, I definitely love those as well. And so I think that the different brands that I promote, they have a variety of options that you can also look at. I would just make sure that there is some liver in what you're consuming. I do think that that's important. Cod liver oil, not all cod liver oil is the same. There can be lots of issues with it. There can be lots of issues with how they're manufacturing things and whether or not they are synthetically adding vitamin A and vitamin D into it afterwards because of the issues that they've made from processing it at a really high temperature. So that's really important as well. Making sure that you're storing your cod liver oil in the fridge is good. We don't want it to go rancid, and making sure that if you have something that has a lid to it, so for example, the liquid cod liver oil, putting the lid back on it when you are not pouring it is good because we, again, don't want it to go rancid. So my core four and magnesium, I mean, I love magnesium. I love it because you don't have to just consume it. You can have a foot soak, you can have a bath, you can apply it topically. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get it in that can be really beneficial. I like putting it on my kids' feet at night. I find that it's really relaxing, and I also find it relaxing for me to put on my feet, not when I'm putting on theirs. But those four can be a really amazing place to start. If you're having things like night sweats, cod liver oil. If you're having things like heavy menstrual cycles or a lot of pain, beef liver or cod liver oil can be really beneficial for those. I've had clients who had pain while they were ovulating, and by consuming more cod liver oil, the pain went away. So different things like that are really important. A lot of the time we're told to be fearful of vitamin A toxicity, but I think if you were to read the book Iron, the Most Toxic Metal by Jim Moon, and start seeing that one of the quotes that he has in there is about how there are more illnesses and injuries and issues that come from iron than there are from, the other common heavy metals that you would know about. So when we think about that for a second, I think that's a sentence that we could skim over and really not pay attention to, but there's all of these issues around heavy metals, and iron is really the issue that we have. We have, again, if you've ever eaten wheat in your life, wheat was fortified in 1941 in the UK, Canada, and the USA, and unless you are having non-fortified organic wheat, then that means that there would have been iron shavings in it. So there's different ways that we can be getting iron. Also another thing, like where I live, where we moved to, we have well water. It's really rich in iron. So there's different ways that we can have iron accumulating in us without us really even knowing it. So that's part of the issue. Think of, having 35, 45 years of us accumulating these different things, and then our body being like, well, that's a lot to now that we need to detox from. We need to get it out of the system. So by focusing on one of those core 4 ways, you could easily add beef liver to food if you wanted to. One of my favorite ways is to grind it down, and then I freeze little tiny cubes of it. Then when I make ground beef or ground pork, I take some of those cubes out and I mix it in with it, and you can't tell that there's added animal organs or beef organs to it. So that's really an easy way to go about it. The adrenal cocktails, those are something that you can make yourself. Obviously, I'm going to be a little bit on the bias side here, because Drink Neat these are my adrenal cocktails that I have, they are electrolytes. They are high in whole food vitamin C. The regulations in Canada are quite strict for what is a supplement, and a supplement would be an adrenal cocktail. But when we're talking about a whole food product, these are electrolytes. So they are rich in vitamin C, and they are also rich in sodium and potassium. And I have made them with 2 forms of whole food vitamin C. So you have pine, you have acerola cherry, you've got shiitake and reishi in there for added B vitamins, because I'm convinced that B vitamins need copper and copper needs B vitamins, and that can be really helpful. And then we have our sodium and potassium. So that's something that if you wanted to, you could make on your own. I will caution you that I do think that a powdered form or something that you can just scoop and go is really important. I've only ever had one client who is stuck with making them on her own. So I do think that having a little jar of one is really important for those days when you don't feel like making an adrenal cocktail. You can make it easy enough if you were to get like some camu or acerola cherry, some powdered form that's rich in whole food vitamin C, and then adding about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and mixing it up. And that's all that there is to it. So it typically won't taste super great depending on your taste buds. If you're just using, like, say, camu or acerola cherry. A lot of people like to use orange juice, but I'm not a big fan of orange juice. So I would caution with that one, but that is a route that you can go. And so if you're finding that you're having these heavy menstrual cycles, you're having a lot of pain, you're not understanding why, you can't figure out why this heavy blood loss is happening, or for example, if you're, what would be another one? Hot flashes are another one, brain fog, things like that, typically a lot of women think, well, this is it. My body's in this transition time. I've even heard of women reversing their menopause through doing this, which I know a lot of women would probably think, well, why would I want my period to come back? Because we live longer because of one of the reasons being because of our menstrual cycle. Because with iron being regulated through that, that's a very important piece for our optimal health and wellness. If you are somebody who doesn't bleed very often, maybe you had a hysterectomy, maybe your menstrual cycles are not increasing, or maybe they're not very frequent, then bloodletting is going to be really important. It's basically like our body is a boiling pot with a lid on it, and we want to lift the lid so that the air can, we can let that steam out, and that's really important. So bloodletting would be a really important avenue. You can do acupuncture with wet cupping, you can do therapeutic phlebotomies depending on the country that you live in, or blood donations are a route to go. So if you're struggling though, and say your menstrual cycles are super, super heavy, then look at adding yarrow, or I'm really big into alfalfa right now. I think that there's a big missing piece, and I think alfalfa has a big role in that. It's a rich copper source, so that can be really helpful. But there are herbs that you can consume that can help all of this. And of course, if you want to learn more, then head on over to my school community. We have a discussion board. There's a bunch of other like-minded women who are struggling with these different health issues and trying to piece together how iron's movement plays a role in that. I have different services that I offer where you can upgrade. Obviously, behind a paywall, I'm able to say more of my opinions about different topics that I'm not able to in more of a public setting. So that's one of the benefits of doing that. We meet monthly or bi-weekly, depending on the package that you've purchased, which, I mean, seems like a no-brainer because it's as low as $7 a month for a year, which, I mean, you can't even get a coffee. Like, you go to Starbucks and you want to go get a coffee now, it's like 9 something. So to get the answers that you've been struggling with, and you haven't been able to find or piece together for as low as $7 a month, I mean, I've tried to make it as absolutely ridiculous and affordable as possible. So if that sounds like something that interests you, head on over to my school community. And if not, I hope that you enjoy my YouTube videos, and make sure that you subscribe so that you can see when the next one comes out.